friends, welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. Today's video is not homeschool related per se, but rather something just for you moms out there. I wanted to get on and share a bit about some books that I've read over the last few years and some Bible devotions that I've done over the last few years that I felt have been just really impactful for me, that have really either changed the way I look at a topic or the way I approach things. And just wanted to give you an introduction to those and why it is that I liked them. And of course, I will link everything down below for you that I mentioned today. Now, largely the devotions that I'm going to talk about come from Daily Grace Co. I'm a huge fan of the Daily Grace Co. company. They just have some of the most beautiful devotionals out there. I mean, not just in terms of how they look, but also the information that it provides and the deep thinking that it encourages me to do. And we have liked them so much that I've actually started incorporating certain ones into our homeschool and have been doing them with my teenagers. And it's just been a really wonderful experience working through their different devotionals over the last couple of years. So I thought I would share a couple of my favorites that I have done. Like I said, a little bit about what each one covers and why it is that I enjoyed it so much. But let me start off with some books. Now, the books I'm going to mention today, they're all written by Sally Clarkson or Sally Clarkson with her daughter, Sarah. And if you're familiar with Sally Clarkson at all, so she, her husband is a pastor. They've done ministry all around the world. I mean, they have moved, I can't remember how many times, moved dozens of times. They've lived in different countries, different parts of the United States. She homeschooled her children from the very beginning, and she focuses a lot on basically ministry and discipleship through all aspects of life. How can we live out our faith and God's word every day and all of the different things that we do, whether that's when we're educating our kids, how we handle meal times, how we set up our home, how we go into relationships with people. And she doesn't shy away from appreciating the beauty in the world, beautiful music, beautiful art, beautiful scenery. Rather than, feeling like that's something we need to deny ourselves, how do we appreciate it? And then how do we use it to God's glory? And so I've really enjoyed reading several of her different books. Now, I listened to a couple of podcasts where she has been a guest, and she does say that a lot of people will read her books and feel sometimes overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, she's done all of these things and she did all these things so well and it must have been perfect and there's no way I can do that. And she's always quick to remind people that, this took decades for us to develop. Like, things weren't perfect for us. We developed traditions and habits and ways of doing things over many, many, many years. And this is how, it blessed our family. And so when I first started reading her books, I kept reminding myself of that I am not going to try to take everything I read and incorporate all of it all at once into my home. Rather, as I've read her books, I've looked for things here and there that I feel like would be a good fit or a good thing to introduce for our family, and have tried to just gradually over time bring those things in little by little. So let me share just a couple of books of hers that I have really enjoyed. So the first one I have is technically a daily devotional. It's called Mom Heart Moments, and this is when I first got introduced to her writing. This was recommended by another homeschooling mom to me. And I really loved this because each day of the year it has a Bible verse to study, and then she's got a story or an example or something to think about, and then there is a prompt or a series of questions for you to review. Now, I diligently did this for 365 days, and I lost track of the number of times that what that daily passage talked about felt like it was exactly what I needed for that day. I don't know how that worked out, but there were so many times I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the exact situation I've been going through. And that was perfect for me. And so it got me hooked on her writing. I really enjoyed this. It took maybe 15 minutes a day to do these devotions. And if you're looking for something that's encouraging for you as a mom, maybe you feel like you've been in a slump, I would highly recommend it. It came to me at the exact time I needed it, and it really did help change my outlook over the course of the year that I did that devotion. Now, the second book I picked up from Sally Clarkson was Awakening Wonder, and I believe this is one of her newer books, but it's Opening Your Child's Heart to the Beauty of Learning. So this is a reflection on kind of their philosophy on homeschooling. So they were what I probably call non-traditional homeschoolers. They didn't buy boxes of set curriculum and sit there and, you know, do a bunch of stuff on the computers and all of that stuff. She really used that whole idea of sparking your child's curiosity and their wonder on different topics, and then helping them to deep dive and find out more about that. If they were really fascinated by the stars, well, then that's what they were going to study, and they were going to study those in depth and learn all of they could about that subject. They also pulled in lots of beautiful things related to literature, you know, great classic books, music studies, art. I mean, all of those different things. And it was a wonderful take on kind of the child-led learning to a degree, you know, where your child has an interest in something and so you pursue it, but also helping to kind of open up your kids to appreciating more things around them. So it was a really interesting book to read. And I read this, with the time I read this, I think the kids were both still in middle school. And at that time we were still, you know, very much doing a lot of very traditional curriculum. And it got me thinking to kind of exploring different types of teaching and learning as we were moving into the high school years. And it's about that time that I actually had discovered Guest Hollow, who I've talked about a bunch in other videos, which does a lot of the immersive learning with the videos and various types of literature, you know, both nonfiction and fiction books, hands-on activities, cooking projects, like really just kind of, you know, immersing your student in a topic. And I want to say that this book probably prompted me to make that change, at least in a couple of subjects more than anything, because I wanted my kids to have that sense of, you know, wonder and interest in, you know, really exploring topics more than what I had already, you know, seen in them during those middle school years. So it was a great book for that. And then two more books by her that I feel kind of go together are the Lifegiving Home and the Lifegiving Table. Now I think I read the Lifegiving Home first. You can see I still got my sticky tabs in it from when I read it. And then the Lifegiving Table right after that. And here in these books, so the Lifegiving Home was written by her and her daughter together, and they kind of alternated who wrote a chapter, and they basically wrote a chapter that kind of went with each month of the year. And they brought up different things that you can kind of incorporate into your home to just really create that, I don't want to say ideal environment, but, you know, home should be a place that you miss it when you're gone. And when you come there, you feel like you've never left. Like it feels like the place where you can let out that deep sigh. You can be comfortable. You can relax. You can talk to your family about all of the things that have been weighing on you, where you can get recharged to go back out and handle the things that are going on in the outside world. Like it should just be one of those places of comfort for you. So the book pulls together some like practical things that you can do within the home, but also, you know, different ways you might start new traditions or commemorate different types of events. I mean, just to give you some ideas on here for May, days to commemorate, marking growth with celebration. So you can talk about, you know, ways that you might make people feel extra special on their birthday that aren't, you know, like throw this big, giant, crazy party, but how is it that as a family, you can really celebrate people? They do something called, they call it like Clarkson Day or something like that, where like, no matter how old they are, they all come together every year. And as a family, they go out and they talk about the ways that they've been blessed in the year and the things that they love about each other. And they record it all down and they do a special breakfast and a picnic. Like it's become a tradition in their family, and it's something that they all look forward to. And it's really just, it's just a fun book to read. And it really got me thinking about different ways that I can create just more of a homey environment here for my kids, because my kids are not that far off from moving out. I mean, I've got 2 years before my oldest leaves the home, or at least goes to college, and 3 years for my youngest. And I want them to always feel like they can come back here and that this will be home. So it was a great book to read. The Life-Giving Table kind of almost felt like an extension of that, because it really talked about ways that we can use food and meal times and tea times and snacks and things like that as an opportunity to sit down and have those great family conversations, to basically disciple to our kids, right? To encourage growth, not only spiritually, but also, you know, intellectually, talking about different topics and getting them engaging on different things. And, you know, disconnecting from, you know, the phones and the outside world, and really focusing in on those relationships with our other family members or our friends at a meal table. So those have just been like some great books to read. And I would recommend, if you were going to start with any of them, I'd probably say the Life-Giving Home was probably one of my favorites out of the series. The Mom Heart Moments is a great devotional to do. If you are still fairly early in your homeschooling journey, I would also highly recommend Awakening Wonder. Like I said, it really impacted how I approached homeschooling over the last couple of years, and I feel like that's been a great benefit to us. Now, it was actually kind of hard to narrow down devotionals that I wanted to mention today. I know this is going to look like a big stack, but I promise I'll go through them fairly quickly for you, and I'll link them all down below. But just to give you an idea of what each one is about and why I liked it. Sorry, the gold leafing makes it hard to see this one, but this one is Come and See. This is a study of the Gospel of John. This was the longest of the devotions that I have done, and it strictly focuses on the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John a lot of times is one that's recommended for people who are like brand new believers because it's one of the simpler ones to follow along and to understand. And there's one of the scriptures that's, quoted from John is these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. In fact, we sing that in our church service every single Sunday before the gospel is read. And this really just deep dives into the chapter, into the pages of John and what is written there and understanding it. And even though I've been a lifelong Christian, I still was learning new things and looking at things in new ways going through this. So this would be a great one if you have like a friend or a family member who is fairly new in their faith, or maybe they are coming back to faith or coming back to the church after being away for a while. It's just a great study that gets you understanding, the whole idea of what Christ did for us and the redemption that he provided for us. So it was a beautiful study. I highly recommend this one for you. Next up is Daughters of Grace. Now, I actually bought 3 copies of this. I got one for myself, one for my daughter, and one for my mom, and all 3 of us did it at the same time. And then I was able to sit down and have some discussions with my daughter as we were going through it. So this is a study of women in the Bible, but also a look at how God's grace is shown in their lives and through their lives. So it's not just, here's Mary and what she did. It's here's Mary, here's what happened, and here's how God's grace is shown through her life and through the things that she did or the things that God did for her. So it's really a study of God's grace more than anything, but it's a wonderful study to do either with a daughter or a sister or a best friend or with your mom. I really would recommend doing this one with a couple of others. It's meant to be done daily, but what we did is we just did the individual devotionals daily, and then once a week we sat down and we kind of did they always have like a week's reflection, and we really did that part together so we could kind of share our thoughts and what we had learned over the course of the previous week. But this one was a great one to do. So the next ones are actually part of a series, so I'll discuss them all together. So it is a series on the Psalms. Now I have 3 of the books, and I think there's one more for me to get. So I have Delight, A Walk Through the Psalms, Wait, and Seek. And so each of these books covers 30 chapters from the book of Psalms. And I had always wanted to really sit and read Psalms more closely. There were certain ones that I was really familiar with because we hear them a lot, or we use them a lot in our worship services. And I've always had the understanding that Psalms were written, they were prayers that were meant to be read or sung in synagogue. That's when they were originally written. And I started, going through it, and I loved having that better understanding of what each psalm was talking about, what was the context of it, like who wrote, like when was it written, and what was going on in the writer's life at that point, especially since so many of them were written by David. Getting a feel for what was happening in his life at the time he wrote this really helped me understand it better. And one thing that has really come out of this is that I've started incorporating various psalms into my prayers each day. I have different ones that are kind of like earmarked in my Bible that I know if I'm having a particularly rough day or particularly joyous day, or I'm dealing with a particular issue, I have certain psalms that I'll go back to and I will pray those. And that has just really really helped my prayer life to be able to do that and to be able to bring those into that. So I've really enjoyed these. I've done, like I said, the first 3, and then I think I've got, the next one still to get. But they are a great introduction into the Psalms. Next up is one we did in our homeschool last year, and it was called More Than Anything, a Study on Idolatry. Oh, I'm so glad I did this one with my kids. I'll tell you what, it's amazing the things that have become idols in our lives that we didn't realize they were idols in our lives. I mean, I thought for sure it'd be like, just things like TV and social media and phone time. But I mean, listen to some of these examples of things: comfort, control, health and medicine, food, work, security, traditions, children, marriage, friendships, knowledge, perfectionism, screens, body image. I mean, there were so many things, and a lot of them were topics that I thought, oh yeah, I think I've done that. I think I've definitely made that a priority over the Lord more than once. And it's good to have those things pointed out to you. I will say, because then of course you can address it, right? But it gets you thinking. So this is a great one. Really good one to do with teens as well. With teens or on your own. The next one I also did in our homeschool last year. This one was called Emotions and the Heart. So this is a study on emotions. This one was great because it focused on how emotions in and of themselves aren't bad. I mean, the Lord gave us emotions. We have the ability to feel joy and happiness and fear and anger and sadness, but it's how we respond to those and how we act upon those that can either be right or that can be sin. If we talk about like the attributes of God, God has righteous anger. So anger in and of itself was not bad if it's righteous. It's if we feel anger, how is it that we respond to it? So it was a study on the emotions. Again, I did this one with my teenagers because teenage years are full of big emotions. And I thought it would be good for us to go through, but it was just as impactful for me as it was for them. And then the last one I have is an Advent study that we had done. This was Hope Has Come, the Promise of Christ in All of Scripture. So this really looked at a lot of the promises and prophecies about Christ throughout the Bible, and then obviously getting us ready in the Advent season to celebrate his birth. So this is one of the annual Advent studies that Daily Grace Co. does. They put out a new one each year. We have done them the last 3 years, and I just ordered our fourth one, and I'll share that, I think probably on like my Q1 update, because we will be using those materials in Q2 of our homeschool. But their Advent studies are very well done. They are a great addition to your Advent traditions in your home, and to work through either on your own or with your whole family. They actually have a version. So they have, each year they put out like the standard devotion. They have a men's devotion, and then they have like a family one that is meant to be used with all ages. So that's a great one if you want to do like some deep dive on your own, or work on this version with your older kids. And then you want to have the family version to be able to do with everybody, especially with your younger kids. It's just a really great resource to add during the Advent season. All right, so those are some of the books and Bible studies that I have really been enjoying over the last couple of years. I will link everything down below for you in the description box. And as always, I'm coming to you asking for your suggestions as well. Are there books that have been really encouraging to you as a mom, or as a homeschooling mom, or as a homemaker that you would like to recommend? I mean, I'm always looking to buy books, to add to my home library and my TBR list. Or Bible studies that you have really enjoyed. I'd love to be able to have new suggestions to be able to check out and, stock my shelf of Bible studies for the upcoming year. As always, guys, really appreciate you joining me here today, and I'll see you in the next video.